Welcome to Canonical, the podcast that took literature out of the classroom. Maybe you have guessed by took that
Past
this
tense.
is the final episode of our podcast. That is right. We are calling it quits for now and just wanted to give everybody who's been listening to us, first of all, thanks for paying attention. I know that there are lots of places where you can pay attention, and I'm glad that you took a moment to listen to us. And also, I guess we could just talk a little bit about our podcast and, why we're stopping now and what we might do in the future. So I don't think we're stopping because we all hate each other. At least I hope that's not the reason.
No.
But I guess you might want to know that, James has got 2 kids of his own, and I have a baby on the way, and Sam has a dog that he really likes. So, we're all pretty busy people, and making a good podcast every week takes a lot of work. So I think right now the time is right to slow down a little bit, and I want to keep making high quality work. So I think it's better to stop before the standards get even lower. So I think that's pretty much why we're quitting, right?
Yeah, this is just taking up a lot of our times. And
A lot of that dog time is never coming back, Sam.
hey, some of us got new jobs not too long ago and have been struggling to keep up. And
that's what should have said. So your dog. It's like you got a new job.
That's true. Sam has a very demanding job. I think it's good also to reflect a little bit about what we tried to do, because our tagline, I think from the beginning, we said we were trying to create an inclusive and new canon or something like that.
Right.
So I guess the question now is, looking back, did we actually do that?
Let's take a look.
I mean, just what's your gut reaction? Because my gut reaction is no.
Yeah, that would probably be my gut reaction as well.
I think it could be a no, but the problem is the question has to be ongoing. You can't just say, oh, I've created a canon and that's it, right? So really, the question is, have we endeavored to read books that are important enough to be considered by other people and to be considered to be part of literature? And I think not always, but that's okay, because that's part of the process. Like, how do you know if a book is not good enough to be considered to be literature until you actually read it and consider it from that lens?
Right. And just because we read these books doesn't mean we thought that these should be included in any canon, let alone the canon.
I guess for me, the key word, though, is inclusive. Like, did we make a good effort to be inclusive?
Well, I think so.
I thought so at first, too. So I did the numbers. And from what I see, perhaps not. Like, I did a sort of all of the books that we read based off of where the authors were from. And 55% are from America, which it seems obvious because we are Americans. And then the next runners up, we have 5.6 from Nigeria, 5.6 from Japan, and 5.6 from China. So the United States takes a pretty commanding lead.
And the UK.
Oh, also 5.6 from the UK. Yeah, can't forget those guys.
Yeah.
At danger of being excluded, of course. But I think that what this shows me is that...
Can I point something out here?
Sure.
You don't have Canada here. Isn't what's her name who wrote Station 11 Canadian? I think you might have overlooked more than one Canadian.
Is she Canadian?
I think she lives in the US, but I think she is from Canada.
That's true, actually. You're right. Apologies to Emily, whoever. She is Canadian, but in terms of representation, I don't think that really matters for shit. But like, if you want to create an inclusive canon, I think what I'm seeing is you have to be really single-minded about it. Because when I was picking books, I would often pick the book that I wanted to read. And I wouldn't usually think too hard about where the author came from or any sort of minority status. And a lot of times you would see people saying, oh, I should start reading Black authors. I should start reading queer authors. And I would scoff at that. But now I see why you have to do that, because if you just default to reading what you want to read, you don't get that inclusivity that you might want.
Well, I think it's also related to the kind of books you want to read.
Right.
Like, we've joked consistently about an EAD book. An EAD book doesn't lend itself to that kind of inclusivity, I think. An EAD book is very experimental, though. It's a different kind of inclusivity, not the inclusiveness that you might consider in the more traditional sense, if that even makes sense, a more traditional inclusivity in literature, because really you're talking about formal experimentation.
Well, I think, too, we tended to be more, quote unquote, inclusive when we had series that made a point of that. But then we would get tired of having those specific kinds of series. So when we fall back on, just picking things that we feel like reading, to your point, Ed, we might not have that in mind. We might just be burnt out on a particularity and the pendulum swings the other way. And that's not really fair, but that's what happened.
I think it might be a little bit like affirmative action, where you have to do something now to change the future situation. Like right now, I don't know if there are many non-Anglo books that satisfy the quote-unquote EAD book status. Like the books that I am drawn to are often written by white men. And I think that you could make an argument that you have to read non-white, non-men, because if those types of people have a readership, it creates a market for people who write the kinds of books that I want to read in the future. But that's a big if. I don't know for sure about that one.
Yeah, there's a lot more self-flagellation in this episode than I anticipated.
Yeah.
This is more of an audit.
I mean, there are other obvious statistics like our male authors, 57.4%, 40.7% female, and we had one non-binary author at 1.9%, which I don't know if this is really that bad. I mean, I think you would have to really dig harder to get that non-binary number bigger than 1.9%. Maybe some non-binary listeners will be unhappy to hear that, but I feel like you'd really have to go out looking very single-mindedly to build that number out.
Yeah, I think I agree.
But in terms of inclusivity, I mean, Sam's definitely the MVP, because if you look at his picks, all the Sam books that he picked, he's got the most non-male writers and the most non-white writers by far, compared to everyone else.
Like, I know that we've given you shit for this, Sam, and I know that you kind of resent it a little bit, but do you think that this is something that you want to continue doing? Is this something that matters to you?
I think so, because just in terms of understanding people and understanding the world around me, I think it's important to read and seek out other books by people that I don't usually hear from. But I mean, like you said, you do have to dig for certain contingents, like non-binary. I don't want to read something by a non-binary person just to have done it, right? I want to find good literature. And I think we did pick a pretty good book with The Death of Vivek Oji, but that goes for any group of people. I don't want to pick a book by a certain type of person just to say that I've done it. I want to find literature. Is that not true for you as well? Was this a good experiment for you, or do you feel like you will settle into more EAD books as was defined a few minutes ago?
What I liked about this reading experiment of doing the podcast is also what I disliked about it. It pushed me to read things that I wouldn't have otherwise read, which I think is very good, but it also kept me from reading a lot of things that I wanted to read.
Tell me about it, Limeworks.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to reading just Limeworks over and over
Right.
again. Like, I would like to branch out and read more Sam books or more James books.
But every time you do, you regret it. You're just like, God damn it, I should have been reading Bernard.
Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you make an effort to stop reading the things that you know you're going to like? Or how do you make an effort to devote yourself to reading a book that you already think is going to be pretty bad or you've heard bad things about? Like, I would guess that if I didn't force you to read Rodham, you would never have picked it up.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And I'm okay with that. I did not need Rodham in my life, even though I thought it was okay.
It's probably to your benefit, though. I mean, not that book specifically, but just to have a wider net and to force yourself to read something new. So I guess the next question would be, now that you don't have this kind of enforced reading schedule, what are you going to read next? What are you interested in looking at?
The kind of book actually that I would like to read more of is A Fire Upon the Deep. Because like I mentioned in our last episode, I really do like high concept sci-fi. And I liked A Fire Upon the Deep quite a lot, even though, the writing is like whatever. It's really about the concept.
Yeah, it was fun. I imagine that I will read more of that because it is easy. And I will have more time for books like that. I've been reading the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin.
Yes, I'm very interested in this. Also a black writer.
Yeah.
Black female writer.
It's good. I'm 2/3 done. I have one more book to go, but it's very good. I recommend it. It loses the theme a little bit in place of story. Like it switches gears and starts to focus more on story, but it does a good job.
For me, contrary to what I had just been saying about branching out and reading new things, what I would really like to do is to just kind of fill in the gaps. Like, we read Sebald's Austerlitz, and I really enjoyed that novel, and he's got 3 or 4 others that I haven't read. So it seems like that would be a good place to go. Or we read, what is it, like 2 Colson Whitehead novels, and he's got 6 or 7 others that I could read.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a lot of reading available, just filling in the blanks from stuff that we already started looking at on this podcast.
Yeah, I'd like to finally get to Underground Railroad at some point soon.
Yeah.
I know I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but Austerlitz was one of the most surprising books to me. I expected that to be a stodgy EAD pick, and I was very
Unstodged.
unstodged. I was very pleased with that, and I could see reading some more Sebald as well.
I don't remember that book at all. Like, I know I remember the summary of the book, but I wouldn't be able to tell you like a summary of the book in terms of like plot or the main character. I just know like it's about refugees, World War II, that kind of stuff. But man, I don't remember that at all.
That leads me into the final point that I would want to bring up here in this concluding episode. If you are like James and you don't know much about Austerlitz, our episodes are still going to be online. I am going to figure out a way of keeping everything that we have posted on the internet in podcast form. So if you want to listen to those episodes, they are going to remain online. Also, everything that we have done is on YouTube. So if you can't find it available in podcast form, you can also find all of our episodes on YouTube. Just search for Canonical Pod. You will not be starved for James and Sam and Iad in the future. And for me, I don't think I am done with kind of this self-produced media onanism, making myself feel important. I want to make something new. So I haven't decided what form it will be in the future, but I will be making something new. It might not be a podcast, but it might be on YouTube, probably on YouTube, but still focused around books. So if you are interested in what I have to say and you'd like to hear more about books from me, please, continue to subscribe to the podcast or find us on YouTube. When that is ready to go, I will make some sort of announcement there, and then you'll be able to find the new project.
Nice.
And if James and Sam have any projects in the future that they're interested in promoting, I'm sure they would do the same. So, on that note, I guess I will sign off for the final time. Everybody who has listened to us along the way, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you have any comments or anything you'd like to say, you can always drop us an email, canonicalpod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.